Shalom, shalom. It's Brother Yahawaj. Lord willing, back with another edifying lesson through the Spirit. Represent GMS Cleveland. Before I begin, face the east, give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Rawchaa, Qadash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of great millstone who well and teach sound doctrine, and a strong shalom to the hopeful elect. Um, Through the Spirit, I was watching a couple videos. Um, the water Bahasham Yahawashai give me the spirit to do this lesson. I was watching some videos on the debt ceiling, and I want to touch on how that's going to affect, Americans, particularly Jake, and how it ties into prophecy. Lord willing, this will be edifying. Before I begin, get a precept. This is Habakkuk chapter 2 and verse 1. It says, I will stand upon my watch and set me upon the tower, and will watch to see what he will say unto me, and what I shall answer when I am reproved. Verse 2 being the point. It says, and the Lord answered me and said, write the vision and make it plain upon tables, that he may run that readeth it. So when we see certain events and we know it ties into prophecies, we break it down to make it simple for the masses. That's what that term means, plain upon tables. These tables, these tablets, rather, are the scriptures. That he may run that readeth it, that he may what that take heed. So before I get started, I want to play a little bit of this clip, but I want to read. This is from Britannica and explains the debt ceiling. It says debt ceiling. Statutory or constitutionally mandated upper limit on the total outstanding public debt of a country, state, or municipality, usually expressed as an absolute sum. And this particular video, the number was around 16 trillion. It's double. It's at 31.4 for those of you who are not in the know. National debt ceilings have been established in some countries in the belief that excessive public debt, which requires large service payments, reduces available funding for many government programs and activities. And some video I was watching, just to make it plain and simple, if they don't get a hold of this, the date speculated is around June or July. If they don't get a grasp on this halfway through the year, then a lot of military personnel won't get paid. People who are living off Social Security, their SOL, and a lot of healthcare professionals will no longer be getting paid either. A lot of things are going to go up. Interest rates are going to hike up. What else did they say was going to happen? Credit cards, all that, everything is going up, and that's really bad because we know the dollar is dying slowly but surely. So what does that spell? That spells all out doom, and that's just one sector of the financial sector. And we know through prophecy that that's not the only way that shit is going to get worse. We're experiencing the shit hitting the fan. It's just we being slow cooked. It says national debt ceilings have been established in some countries in belief that excessive public debt, which requires large service payments, reduces available funding for many government programs and activities, ties up money in the form of government securities that could be productively invested in the private sector, limits the government's ability to stimulate economic activity by lowering taxes, and effectively transfers wealth from less affluent groups, the majority of taxpayers, to more affluent groups, private holders of government securities. And like this video is going to explain, well, I'll just keep reading and let the video explain. There's no need to double down. It says the U.S. established its first bond debt ceiling, 11.5 billion in 1917, and its first aggregate debt ceiling, 45 billion in 1939. During most of the period since the early 1960s, federal budget deficits have steadily increased, requiring more than 70 adjustments in the ceiling to continue financing government operations and to avoid default on the national debt. And for those of you who don't know, the default is when you do not pay on a loan or a debt. Some critics of the United States debt ceiling have claimed that it is ineffective. Defenders have argued that it imposes a measure of fiscal restraint by forcing political leaders to make responsibility, Salakia, to take responsibility for deficit spending whenever the ceiling is raised. Play this clip and get into some precepts. Let's play a little bit of this.
Now it's doing it more than ever. In each of the past, it's done this off. Let's start with how it works. The government spends more money than it takes in. It's done this off and on since the country was founded. But now it's doing it more than ever. In each of the past 4 years, it has spent over $1 trillion more than it took in. In February of this year, it is projected to collect about $215 billion in revenues.
And this was a video from 9 years ago. There's no telling if that number has increased from 1 trillion or not. I'm guessing so, since how it's nearly doubled the amount in the video. Like I mentioned before, 16 trillion.
And pay out $460 billion. The government borrows to make up the difference by selling bonds to investors around the world. Nearly half of that debt is now held by foreigners, much of it by Japan and China. Each month that the government spends more than it brings in, that is, each month that the government runs a deficit, it has to borrow. The sum of all this borrowing is the federal debt. It's been growing, both in dollars and measured against the size of the economy. Until World War I, Congress had to vote each time the Treasury needed to borrow money. To give the Treasury more flexibility, Congress switched to setting a ceiling on the debt in 1917. When the debt bumps up against that limit, Congress, often with a lot of shouting and bargaining, votes to lift the ceiling. And that is where we are now. The government hit the $16.4 trillion federal debt ceiling.
Right. And we can stop there. But this is just another avenue that Esau uses to oppress the poor. You know, this is the Lord's sword on the left-hand side. You know, over here in America, we are suffering captivity. And this is just another facet of our suffering. So without further ado, get into some precepts. As a matter of fact, no, trust the Spirit. This is Sirach or Ecclesiasticus in the Apocrypha, chapter 4, verse 1. It says, "My son, defraud not the poor of his living, and make not the needy eyes to wait long." And we go into that word defraud. It says to deprive of right by deception or breach of trust or withholding. So, you know, Esau got all his riches by using his gift, his military might, and by his cunning is how he's kept it. You know, these different laws, legislations, you know, and the debt ceiling is one of those things because this is a credit-based society. And, you know, in the year 2023, the public as a whole is starting to see more and more how this is affecting us. You know, it's not brand new. This isn't out of thin air, but it's finally catching up to us. And we're seeing the great Babylon being reduced to nothing. All the free labor you got from slavery, you know, the Lord said, matter of fact, I don't want to butcher it. Nahum 1:3, it says, "The Lord is slow to anger and great in power and will not at all acquit the wicked." So yeah, this is part of the wicked getting it. They're just desserts, These Edomites are in shambles. And ultimately, this is the Lord's plan. We just seeing it from our eyes, and like we said before, making it plain upon tables, because this debt ceiling is putting Esau in a rough spot. But also through the spirit, it's making way for the remedy. That's the spirit off camera. We were just talking about that, pressure from above and pressure from below. And now, in order to rectify what's going on with the economy, they're going to usher in, Esau's ruffles. But back to this precept in Sirach 4:1, it says, "My son, defraud not the poor of his living, and make not the needy eyes to wait long." So I brought up this precept because as a result of the reckless government spending, people who are dependent on that money in the form of healthcare workers, military workers, and people who are living off Social Security, they're not going to have their checks, if this isn't rectified by the middle of the year. And the cost of living, everything is going to go up as a result of this. So ultimately, because of you spending more than what's available, you've affected everybody beneath you, the people who don't really have a choice, the citizens of the United States. Verse 2, it says, "Make not an hungry soul sorrowful, neither provoke a man in his distress." Verse 3, well, slow down. It says, "Make not a hungry soul sorrowful, neither provoke a man in his distress." Etymology of the word provoke. Provoke. The medicine to induce, sleep, vomiting, to stimulate, to call forth, to challenge. That word vocare is to call. The general sense, urge, incite, stimulate to action. So make not a hungry soul sorrowful. You know what it means to be sorrowful. It says neither provoke a man in his distress. So neither kick somebody while they're down. And this whole system is oppressive. America is built off the oppression of what? The Israelite man and woman. And ultimately, when it comes to the poor, that's who we are. Due to the curses, the other nations are the head, particularly Esau, and we're the tail. So until Yahawashi comes back and redeems us from these curses and from the hands of our enemies, we're going to always be the tail. We're always going to be the butt of the joke. We're always going to receive the short end of the stick. Even the athletes and the billionaires and millionaires among us, you're still in last place. So verse 3, it says, "Add not more trouble to an heart that is vexed." Right, because going back to what I mentioned before, the curses, the heart is your lob, your mind. And, we don't have any rest here. We don't have any mental solitude and fortitude, especially those of us, well, not us, especially those men, women, and children who do not have Yahawashi as a covering cast. The elect, the spirit is enduring, but even the elect is super vexed. And Lord willing, we'll be a part of that number to be saved and be delivered during these perilous times that are upon us. But verse 3 again, it says, "Add not more trouble to a heart that is vexed, and defer not to give to him that is in need." And really, you can apply this from Jake to Jake, but Esau's lineage goes back to his father. Esau and Jacob, come from the same loins. It's just one of those seeds was the seed of the promise. That lineage, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. when Isaac, you know, planted that seed, the righteous seed was the one that the Lord had favor and had mercy on. But right now, it's the evil's brother's turn to rule, pursuant to Job 9:24. It says, and defer not to give to him that is in need. Reject not the supplication of the afflicted, neither turn away thy face from a poor man. And this is what Esau is doing right now. Because when they put out the news articles, when they put out these videos, they're not worried about Jake, who just left the liquor store. They're not worried about Shaniqua, who's leaving from the child support office. They're worried about other Edomites. They're worried about investors. They're not thinking about you niggas. They're not thinking about you Latinos and you Native American and Seminole Indians when they're making these broadcasts, when they're making this information, public. They doing it in hopes that they could revive this economy and come up with a solution so they can keep the wealth that they amassed through what? Through slavery. They don't give a damn about you. This is Sirach or Ecclesiastes chapter 34, verse 21. The bread of the needy is their life. He that defraudeth him thereof is a man of blood. And I'm going to read that in the Good News translation. This is Sirach chapter 34, verse 21. In the Good News translation, it says, food means life itself to poor people, and taking it away from them is murder. And this is just on a small scale. Esau is going to use the things that are most precious to us to gain leverage in order for us to do what? Comply to his plans of the NWO. And that starts with necessities. Why do you think all these food processing places are being burnt down? Why do you think the stage has been set for Esau's ruffles to be prominent? They're going to issue in a new system, and they're going to grab you by the nuts and twist in order for you to comply. But that's another way that Esau oppresses the poor. But I digress. This is Sirach 34 and 21 again in the regular King James. It says the bread of the needy is their life. And of course, food and water. But, when we talking about bread, we talking about money in this context. It says it's their life. He that defrauded him thereof is a man of blood. So if you defraud a man of money and natural resources, anything that you absolutely need, that's a characteristic of an Edomite. Unsatiable, never satisfied, always got his head in somebody's business, and willing to do whatever he takes to get more, more, and more. Verse 22, he that taketh away his neighbor's living slayeth him. And he that defraudeth the labor of his hire is a blood shedder. And once again, when you read about this and you hear this, like you get a picture in your head, or at least you should. And I'm thinking of Esau. Throughout different captivities, his wickedness is catching up to him. Like that scripture in Job, about the bones and the sins of his youth. He has an extensive resume in wickedness. We've seen it how he did with the Northern Kingdom, the Native Americans. In Reuben, he came to this land and wreaked havoc. And once he got here, he had the Southern Kingdom in captivity and was getting free labor and in some cases rare, would pay slaves little to nothing. He does it today. The scriptures tell us how you're supposed to get paid the same day for your work. A lot of people are on a bi-weekly pay, and even if you do get weekly pay, you don't even get the full amount because why? They tax you. But that's what the devil does. It's his job to oppress us. That power is given to him by Yahawashi on the left hand side. And with this imaginary fiat currency that he's been dangling over our heads, we got a taste of how he's going to act once he makes the sea hit mandatory. This is Proverbs 17:5. It says, "Whoso mocketh the poor reproacheth his maker." And right, like I mentioned, Israelites, we are the poor. Precept to back that up. Slakia. James 2:5 says, "Hearken, my beloved brethren, have not the heavenly Father chosen the poor of this world rich in faith and heirs of the kingdom, which he hath promised to them that love him?" So that's us. This is James, our brother. Mr. Hearken, my beloved brethren, have not the heavenly Father chosen the poor of this world rich in faith? The only people humanly possible that can have faith in Yahawah Shai are the Israelites. Faith that will actually work in their favor, because faith just means belief. And key point in this verse is heirs of the kingdom. This is an all-inclusive ministry, so you can believe technically, because scoffers and people love to play semantics, but the promise of the kingdom, that's only for the Israelites, and out of those Israelites, only a remnant is going to receive that deliverance on the first go round. So before I go too far off topic, Proverbs 17:5, "Whoso mocketh the poor," and we know who the poor is, the poor in this world and the rich in faith, which are the Israelites. "Whoso mocketh the poor reproacheth the maker." Let's go into that word mock. Make fun of, to trick, delude, make a fool of, treat with scorn, treat derisively, derisively, or contemptuously, deride, jeer. So basically, to shit on you, to demean you, to belittle you, to treat you with low regard. Same thing. To mock, to ride, to ridicule, have in derision, laugh to scorn, to mock. So go back. Whoso mocketh the poor, so who derides, who ridicules, who jeers the poor, the humble, the contrite that the Lord looked for, primarily the elect, reproaches his maker. And who is our maker? Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Qadash. And he that is glad at calamities and calamities, mishaps, misfortunes, shall not be unpunished. So, like I brought out earlier in that Nahum, surely the Lord will not acquit the wicked. Why? Because he's fucking with the apple of his eye. And through the spirit and power of Yahawashi Yahawashi, we're exposing this devil. He think he got a couple tricks up his sleeve, but there's nothing hid from the Lord. Proverbs 22:16 says, he that oppresseth the poor to increase his riches, and he that giveth to the rich surely shall come to want. So we've already established who the poor is, and oppress in this context is a synonym to mock, or synonymous, however you want to say it. This is that same scripture. That's fine. In the NIV, it says, one who oppresses the poor to increase his wealth, and one who gives gifts to the rich, both come to poverty. So we can apply this spirit to Esau and to the nations that are in confederacy with Esau, because they're all going to be reduced to nothing. And Esau is going to receive the worst judgment out of all the nations. It's Proverbs 28:6. It says, better is the poor that walketh in his uprightness than he that is perverse in his ways, though he be rich. And Esau got it right now. It's his kingdom. So he is rich. And when I say he, I'm referring to all the Edomites, really starting with the elite bankers, the ones at the top, because they get to experience the totality of that Job 9-24. They get to have money that people in this lifetime will never see or touch. Into the word upright. Erect, face upward. Figurative sense of good, honest, adhering to rectitude. Let me see what it says in here. Integrity, uprightness, completeness, innocence, simplicity, and integrity. Go down to the Strongs. Usually morally innocent, full integrity, perfection, simplicity. So yeah, the point's been made. Better is the poor that walketh in his uprightness than he that is perverse in his ways. twisted, distorted, crooked, perverse, perverted. And Esau, being the basis of men and the border of wickedness, he is the most perverse of them all. And he's spearheading the operation. Fuck Jake, get money. That's really what it is. Perverse is a spirit, wicked, unnatural, degenerate, perverse, and contrary. These are all attributes that fit Esau, the other nations, and ultimately the 2/3 until they get back right in the mind through the spirit and power of Yahawashi. So back to Proverbs 28:6 says, better is the poor that walketh in his uprightness. We've established who the poor is, and we know what upright is, being morally innocent, in a scriptural context, you do that by cleaving to the law, statutes, and commandments, having faith in Yahawashi, and repenting, turning back to your heritage, rehearsing the righteous acts. This is an all-inclusive ministry. You got to have your ticket. You got to have the right attire. You know what I'm saying? You got to dress the part if you have eyes to see and ears to hear. In order to serve the Lord how he wants to be served, that's achieving that uprightness, on this side, until the Lord takes that stony heart away from us completely and inserts the law, statutes, commandments inside of us, the new covenant. Right now we're under grace. It says, then he that is perverse in his ways, contrary to the ways of Yahawashi, though he be rich on this side, because why? Like the scriptures say, they receive their consolation. And that consolation for Esau is the fatness of the earth. Jump down to verse 8. He that by usury and unjust gain increases his substance, he shall gather for him that will pity the poor. So like, shit. It's Proverbs 28, 8, that same one in the NIV. NIV is not popping up on this one. I must gotta add it again. Oh, so like that 8. Yeah, that is 8. Whosoever increases wealth by taking interest or profit from the poor amasses it for another who will be kind to the poor. So read this again. It says, he that by usury and unjust gain increases his substance, he shall gather it for him that will pity the poor. Usury, let's go into the word. We don't got to guess. Paraphrase. Interest, usury. Doesn't give much. Practice of lending money at interest, later at excessive rates of interest. Payment for the use of money. And, Esau has created a credit-based system where he thrives off. This is a debt-based society. And we saw that. That's how we started the video. Matter of fact, I'll start up Proverbs 28:9. That's a spirit. Don't rush. Damn, I'm tripping. I lost my thought. He that by usury and unjust gain increasing the substance. And how did he do that? By slavery. By heavy taxation. That same spirit of Rome. He shall gather it for him that will pity the poor. And that's the spirit, because eventually, Esau is going to go into captivity and correct all the mistakes that he made. He's not going to, correct it with silver and gold, but with manual labor. All the ancient artifacts that he stole, he's going to put them back. He's going to build up the kingdom, and then he's going to be put out of his misery. Scriptures talk about how he will seek to please the poor. No. It's crazy. We starting to see that now because even on a low level, I was reading an article earlier. It's talking about they taking certain pieces of the curriculum out of a educational institution in Florida. They said they're not going to masquerade being woke as indoctrinating. And it was talking about, of course, Jake, African American studies and shit. But they was tying in the queer agenda and all that shit. Basically, long story short, we start to see certain glimpses of certain scriptures before they happen. That's having a spiritual eye. We starting to see the transition. Esau is being exposed for his lies, his faulty doctrines, his witchcraft, his potions they're wearing off. And we're seeing the curses roll on Esau, just not in its totality yet. That's the point I'm trying to make. So like it, I don't want to cause confusion. But you can look at life as through certain lenses, like the opioid crisis. That's comparable to the crack epidemic. You can see a lot of these lower Edomites. You're seeing them more and more at the shops that you go to. You're seeing more Edomites in your neighborhood. Why? Because it's all they can afford. They're starting to feel what we feel as Israelites, being reduced to nothing. And that's why Revelation 3 and 10 is so important, because we all, as a nation, and I'm talking about the United States, are going to be reduced to nothing. This P. Diddy was global. Now the next phase of the NWO is going to be global as well. And that's getting everybody, C-hipped. And he's going to use, the beast system to push out his agenda. Salaki, that was... Well, no, not Salaki. I can't keep saying that shit. I meant to say it, but, I want to be on topic. I ain't planning for this to go that long. It was Proverbs 28:8. It says, "He that by usury and unjust gain increases his substance, he shall gather it for him that will pity the poor. He that turneth away his ear from hearing the law, even his prayer, shall be an abomination." That's pretty self-explanatory, but those despise the poor, even his prayer shall be an abomination. Hearing the law. So people who are anti Yahawashi in the scriptures and what the scriptures stand for and represent, prayer shall be an abomination. And Esau's prayer is definitely an abomination. And, the wicked of our people that fall into that vibration. Verse 10, it says, "Whoso causes the righteous to go astray in an evil way, he shall fall himself into his own pit, but the upright have good things in possession." It's Esau's bread and butter to make you go off. Yep. Reset to back that up and go back to the main point. Proverbs 4 and 16 says, "For they sleep not except they have done mischief, and their sleep is taken away unless they cause some to fall. For they eat the bread of wickedness and drink the wine of violence. See, all these attributes you could associate to Esau. Wickedness, violence. Uh, Isaac, his father, gave him that blessing. You know, the sword. So he's using it to his full extent. And that same spirit that was in Esau was the same spirit that was in the garden that beguiled Eve. So these are all characteristics that we look for in order to know our enemy, and in order to, you know, try to predict what's happening next. We got the precepts, we know his characteristics. Now it's just up to us to watch and see what he's doing. That old saying in the world, keep your friends close and keep your enemies closer. This is how we gauge also where we're at in prophecy, because this is the beginning of him coming down with great wrath. Because if you think Esau is going to take it lightly, all the money that he's losing, the stock market has been volatile, but it's been relatively bad recently. Interest rates going to everything. This doesn't just affect the Israelites. This affects everybody. Esau's got big, big, big plans. Camp, I was also watching a video, and at this current point right now, in the month of January 2023, the year all hopeful prophecies come to pass, um, we're on the brink or experiencing what's known as a polycrisis. So that links up with what the scriptures say about during the last days of the perilous times, and Jeremiah 30, how Jacob's trouble is on the horizon. We're getting closer and closer and closer. These times are among us. Shit, Jacob's trouble can pop off around when they predicted about halfway through this year. If this problem isn't rectified, and healthcare workers don't get paid, military personnel doesn't get paid, the elderly with the Social Security, if interest rates and things continue to skyrocket, and the cost of living continue to skyrocket, but our wages, you know, don't really adjust to those changes, the dollar is weakening, and plus all the other things that are going on, yeah, it's gearing towards all out hell. But the prophets said, and oh, you're just conspiracy nuts. But when these different media outlets, these whistleblowers said, you tuned in, you ears open and eyes wide. But hey, the scriptures told us that would happen too. This is Sirach chapter 13 and verse 23. It says, when a rich man speaketh, every man holdeth his tongue, and look what he said, they extol it to the clouds. But if the poor man speak, they say, what fellow is this? And if he stumble, they will help to overthrow him. So when Alex Jones says something, they're like, wow. When Elder Pastor says something, they're ready to scoff. They disregard it. They're like, man, who is this dude? When we say something, we go out there Saturday and warn people of the dangers to come, after guidance through the Holy Spirit under the tutelage of our elders and apostles. Start with Elder Apostle on down. They give us the same crazy look, the same shit talk. But if you go on YouTube and look at Redacted, or you go look at Wall Street, you type it up on CBS or whatever financial news you're looking into, they sit there ready, like, wow, these guys are really smart. What do I need to do to protect my investment? What do I need to do to protect my livelihood? Not considering that your whole way of living is about to change. There is no revival for America. America will be destroyed, but this breakdown is systematic and it's from the heavens. The Lord's plan for America is for this to be a desert. The Lord's plan for America is utter destruction by thermonuclear fire. The Lord's plan for America is for this place to get gradually worse until Yahawashi and the angels have to intervene. That's the plan. And one way that the society is crumbling is financially, which is what I wanted to touch on today a little bit through the Spirit. But the Lord is going to deliver us out of that, you know. That's why the scriptures say better is the poor who is upright. Get a couple precepts on that, and I'll close out. Psalms 12:5 says, for the oppression of the poor, for the sighing of the needy, now will I arise, saith the Lord. I will set him in safety for him that puffeth at him. And through the Spirit, that's synonymous with mock. We're going to look into it, thorough, be studious. This is breathe, blow. No, we know that's not a literal puff. It says to utter, to kindle fire, to scoff, blow upon, bring into a snare. Woo! So read that again. For the oppression of the poor, we've established who the poor is. For the sighing of the needy, now will I arise, saith the Lord. I will set him in safety from him that puffeth at him. So the Lord is going to use his son to redeem us. That's a nomen omen, Yahawashi. He saves or he delivers. And that's what he's going to do. And what scriptures should come to mind? Isaiah 63. Not only is this spiritually Babylon, but this is spiritually Basra as well. Esau's dwelling. Proverbs 21:13 says, whoso stoppeth his ears, also like that twice. I had a few written down. Okay, that's safe. Psalms chapter 34, verse 6, it says, this poor man cried, and the Lord heard him and saved him out of all his troubles. The angel of the Lord encampeth round about them that fear him, and delivereth them. The Lord, that's the Spirit. The Lord, a provider and a deliverer. And right now, as you know, Israelites already being in the lowest state, being reduced to nothing, it's about to get worse. This is a psalm from King, reading in Psalms 34:1. It says, a psalm of David when he changed his behavior before Abimelech, who drove him away, and he departed. You know, as the Spirit Elder Apostle Rakah mentioned that, like, you know, King David upheld his integrity. And, you know, before he was king and when he was king, he endured a lot. But he had faith and trusted in Yahawashi to deliver him out of every situation. And that's the same faith that we have, who are willing as the house of David, as hopeful elect, that no matter what situations or circumstances that we're placed in, Yahawashi is going to see us through. This is Psalm 72 and 12. It says, "For he shall deliver the needy when he crieth, poor also, and him that have no helper. He shall spare the poor and needy, and shall save the souls of the needy." The Lord controls good and evil. So everything that happens for a reason. And, us as hopeful elect, this is part of us being brought through that fire that's mentioned in Zechariah 13. It's part of our fiery trial, being tried as fine gold, silver, and precious stones. And the Lord is not going to put us through anything that we can't bear. But, as a hopeful prophet, as a hopeful elect, I'm here to tell you that it's not going to be easy. This walk is difficult, and the closer we get to the kingdom, the more intense things are going to be. But the Lord will deliver you if you are of the elect. Just straight up. In Psalms 82 and 4 says, "Deliver the poor and needy, rid them out of the hand of the wicked." And the wicked is Esau, Edom. Esau is the border of wickedness. And it's inevitable that this system is going to crash, and that Esau's tortilla is going to be mandated. So who's going to have faith and trust in the Lord? Or who's going to fold? The elect is going to stand up, have faith, and do the things that the Lord requires in order to get the kingdom. And then the rest of Israel is going to fold, and the other nations never stood a chance. So with that, Lord willing, this is edifying. Call Halayam La, Yahawaj, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Qadash. Double honor to the elders and the apostles of great millstone who well and teach sound doctrine, and a strong shalom to the hopeful elect. Lord willing, this was edifying. Kwame Shabala, Ababa Ball, Shalom.